Sally reassures Bunny, who thanks her, and Jeffrey apologizes about interrupting the touching moment, but the pieces are gathered and they can't keep Ixis waiting. It was satisfying that she said, "Give us a minute." Jeffrey arrives at Ixis' side with the princess, and he can sense Sonic isn't nearby thanks to the magic tracker on him. Since when was there ever a magic tracker? He tells Jeffrey to put trackers on his friends as well. I guess Ixis would be able to sense if there wasn't a magic tracker on one of them, because he wouldn't be able to sense where they were. Jeffrey whispers to Sally that Ixis' back is to the door, so the rest is up to her. Hopefully he's plotting against Ixis. Sally closes the door. Ixis then raises his emerald, and Sally panics for some reason and asks Ixis to turn her back now. He says that he just wants to make sure their conversation was private. He didn't want Nicole to listen in. He invited her here to thank her because she's loosely the reason he ended up being the king. So now he's going to go on for a bit and recap. Why does he think he had to brainwash the king into trying to murder all the Robians in an attempt to claim power? He already had power. He was possessing the king anyways. It made him seem like a confusing, cowardly fraidy cat that he was a powerful wizard, and he's still scared of Robians and Nicole just because of their technology. He can crystallize them easily anyways. You'd think he would have just crystallized all the Robians himself instead of bothering with the Civil War thing, if that was something he could do to things with technology. He says that Sally removed herself from the equation, and annoys me by calling her a traitor when he would know she isn't. And he says that manipulating everyone became easy without a voice of reason to keep everyone calm. Sonic was trying to be a voice of reason. It's not that there was no voice of reason, it's that the writing was forced. Why is he telling her this? What's the point of him gloating to her about all of his evil plans? If Sally has a listening device on her to ruin Ixis, then while that would be common sense, it rely on Ixis being an idiot. There's a reason he never told anyone but Jeffrey all of this. He has him to gloat to. He doesn't need to tell anyone else. I'd rather have a villain defeated in a satisfying fight where he gets beaten up a whole bunch. Not because he conveniently got an idiot bowl out of nowhere. But I guess it's realistic that he'd be a jerk and brag, because he's always like that. Ixis says that nobody will ever believe Sally about everything he told her, because she's the princess of the dishonored Acorn family. He says he would just deny it, and she's just trying to get power back to the royalty. Sally says the nanites recorded what he just said, but the whole room has been crystallized. Ixis crystallized the whole room as soon as it was given to him, and he just used illusion magic to make everything normal. Merlin does that. I don't remember Ixis ever doing that before. Actually, you'd think if he could use illusion magic, he would have used it against Sonic in his last fight with them. All the time. Like, what does illusion magic have to do with elemental powers? He's the master of the elements. He's had new powers a lot. The problem is really that, why didn't he use this a lot earlier? Why didn't you just have a regular listening bug? Or at least a camera phone turned on in her clothing? Why would she rely entirely on the convoluted nanites to record his gloating instead of recording it the way a normal person would? Well, to be fair, it would be cheap to have Ixis' ousting only happen because he had a huge idiot ball and gloated. Him gloating to Sally just makes me wonder why he didn't gloat to the other freedom fighters before this point. Then Sly shows up from behind the flower pots, asking if new pieces were added to the board. He's been carrying Nicole, and says, "Thanks for the villainous back to the door cliche, by the way. It made it easy to sneak in and hide behind here while your skunk friend left." He's been recording Ixis' speech with a handheld Nicole, who broadcasted his entire conversation to the whole kingdom. Live. Good thing he was live, or else he would have wrecked Nicole's plan the minute he saw her because the heroes bragged to his face before leaving the room. It's kind of satisfying to see this. Hamlin stomps the floor angrily as Rosemary says that so much adds up now. I kind of wish she said what she meant by that. I want to see her show a hell of a lot more regret than that. I want strong emotion from her, not just this. Not just dull surprise and resentment. When she's the one who said that the Constitution didn't say that the king couldn't be Ixis, it didn't say who the king had to be. It was her suggestion for Ixis to be in power, basically. I wanted to react differently than this. I wanted to list what adds up. what her problems with him was, because I never felt like she had any problems with him. Surprisingly, the people of the city were completely unaware that Ixis had told the king to try to murder all of the Robians. Isn't it obvious that everyone would have been told that was Ixis' idea so that they wouldn't hold it against King Acorn? He would have been overthrown, or at least had a riot against him, if the heroes didn't explain that he was possessed into it. That would have ruined his reputation. I guess it has to be explained that they didn't know what he did, because them hiring him to be the king when he tried to get all the Robians killed was a plot hole all by itself. It does make more sense that they would elect him as king and think he was trustworthy if they didn't know that he had tried to get the Robians killed. But of course it was him who was doing that. Why wouldn't they have been told that he did that? The king would have been overthrown and rioted against a lot earlier otherwise. At least it's satisfying to finally see the citizens turn on Ixis. If Archie, Sonic, and Lion got his issues out faster, I would have already seen this. This is probably the best part of the comic, because this is the part where I get to see basically a flash forward in Archie, Sonic, and Lion's future. Of course he jumps away from Sly's girlfriend when she tries to shoot at him. Her name is so forgettable. I can't help but keep forgetting it. And I feel bad too, because she's actually sympathetic at this point, now that she's not hunting down Sly. He says none of this will matter soon, but he gets hit by thrown rotten tomatoes. How do the citizens already have those? I can only assume that they were put there by the heroes ahead of time, specifically in the hopes that this will happen. Then that should be explained, because that'd be clever and funny, instead of taking this cliche completely seriously, where there's conveniently rotten tomatoes just because people want to throw them. Ixis gets hit in the back by a laser from Bunny. Wouldn't a laser just go straight through him though, and kill him immediately? If a laser blasts through you, you're dead, regardless. I can only assume that because Bunny doesn't want to kill anyone, and Rotor doesn't want anyone killed either, Bunny's lasers are programmed to not go through people. Like, it just burned him, but it just stopped right there, apparently. It's able to be stopped by skin, or the stuff he's wearing. I wish he just kicked him instead. Yeah, that would be better writing, because it'd be more satisfying to see her actually kick him. And Sally naturally asks her parents what they're doing here. Yeah, they're supposed to be safe in Furville, not risking their lives here. Ixis blinds everyone with his emerald staff, and says that this victory requires sacrifice. We see the former king, and Sally said she can't dodge, and she creates a shield in front of her with the ring blades, saying that the homing blast is small enough that she can block it. Sally's father doesn't have faith in her to be fine taking this risk. And it makes even more sense when she says that she's not sure if they can block black magic, because she never tried it before. So he pulls Sally out of the way and gets vaporized by a laser himself. I thought only Sonic Retold would do this. At least I don't have to be made sad by him anymore. But again, he's supposed to be alive in the future. It was clearly stated that Nicole was sent through a trans-time portal, so she is from the future, not another dimension. And Sonic is a kids' series, so obviously this isn't what's meant to happen to him. He's supposed to be cured of his bad betrayal eventually and go back to being cheerful. But I'm trying to look on the bright side here. At least it was a heroic sacrifice. If you're gonna get rid of the character, that's the best possible way to do it. Sally asks why won't it cut it, as she's hitting some crystals. Why wouldn't it cut it? Wait, is she hitting her father after he's in crystal? Is he gonna get turned back to normal? Rotor even says that it makes no sense. Only non-organic material was affected in the past, so why is Max trapped in it? Is he a robot? Or nanites in him as well? Kodos and Arachnus got crystallized. And of course they're organic. You'd think if only non-organic material could be crystallized, they wouldn't be affected. And it would have been all Bunny that was crystallized by Ixis, not just her cybernetics. Sally sniffles and has some tears as Sonic comforts her. Good thing she and her mother are clearly shown to care about Max. Main characters clearly caring about each other is a very good thing to make you care more about them. Jeffrey's with Ixis, despite the fact that he made a plan with Sally against them. He says he's almost finished and puts the crown and staff in the center. Penelope finds it exhilarating as she bursts into the room along with Sally and Hamlin. Some good character derailment for her after she was the one who said that the council elected them to govern. and threatened to charge Hamlin with dereliction of duty for trying to fight as freedom fighters. It makes sense that a situation like this would cause her to go back on that. But Ixis says that his newly developed magic circle, powered up by the crown, which never had magical power before because it's not the crown of acorns, and the Chaos Emerald, will eventually rob them of all their free will and turn them into his mindless slaves. Why is there a magic circle now? I guess this makes sense instead of being a Diabolos Ex Machina. I guess he was developing his magic circle the entire time that he was off screen. He had plenty of time to do it. You'd think he would have done this instead of his get Jeffrey to find a bunch of wizard bones and take multiple days to do it plan. But I guess him preparing for this was taking a hell of a lot longer than we see. Longer than the Sonic Universe plan of his. It's just confusing to have him have a different brainwashing plan than he did before. Sonic tells Jeffrey that he didn't mention anything about this. Good, Ixis gets foiled. This is a bind and drain spell, which is suddenly a thing. He wants to make sure Ixis stayed put for the return spell to, quote, return us to your location a few years ago. I like magical stuff being used against Ixis. That's ironic. But I can't help but feel like it's cheating the heroes out of their victory against Ixis when Jeffrey is the one to defeat him instead of them. I'd rather see the heroes satisfyingly punch and kick him a whole bunch. Bunny could kick him into a portal to the Zone of Silence. Instead, Bunny fired one laser at him and then Jeffrey did the only important thing. Ixis says that a simple return spell wouldn't have the power to open up a rift to the Void. They barely ever call it the Void. Jeffrey says he needed to gain the power of the Emerald and Crown to heighten the power of the spell, and needed the time to make sure Ixis wouldn't notice the modification to the magic circle that he made. Sally wasn't aware of this part of the plan. He says that if he simply removed Ixis from power, the disillusioned, loyal citizens might have rebelled against the council and ruling family. So we had to make sure to destroy Ixis' credibility to fully fix his mistakes. And yet Hamlin says that he was just using them. Why is he saying that? Why is Jeffrey being treated like the bad guy here? He's being a hero. Ixis even calls him a traitor. Out of nowhere, he says that he was the one who gave Jeffrey his powers. I can understand why the writer wrote this. What's confusing is that there was never any indication that Ixis, the master of the elements, could give someone else powers. How could a wizard give someone else powers? That would be like generating magic out of nothing. I guess what he did was activate the power in him. He said that it was in your DNA all along. You could always use the Chaos Force. What does modifying someone's DNA so that they can get a huge connection to the Chaos Force, what's that have to do with elemental magic? But again, he's shown new powers that the plot demands that had nothing to do with elements before. Like he can augment people's negative emotions. It's literally a bad writing trope to have new powers that the plot demands. But you can kinda get away with it for a wizard. I understand why the writer did that. What's the point of having a wizard if you're not going to take advantage of it? At least it's creative to come up with a new power for him. It's just very confusing though to reveal this when it was never implied in Archie. This revelation doesn't erase the fact that Flynn clearly showed us he was training with wind magic when Ixis was trapped in the Zone of Silence, and Ixis was telling Jeffrey how to do it. Ixis being the one who gave Jeffrey his powers doesn't remove the continuity error of why didn't he use his powers for the heroes all along. Because he had them when he was in the Zone of Silence. I know why this is stupid. If Ixis can just give people powers, why doesn't he just give a whole bunch of people powers? I'm pretty sure that if there are people who are like Drago and Sleuth and would agree to work for Eggman for power, Ixis could have had a whole army to himself just by telling people that he'd give them powers. People would agree because why wouldn't you want to get magical powers? Combine that with the fact that he can brainwash people. He effortlessly brainwashed the soldiers into trying to kill the Robians, and the Mobians into trying to tear apart the city to try to kill the Robians. No mention of a brainwashing chamber with wizard bones, no mention of a magic circle with the crown and Chaos Emerald. He could have easily done that and had an army of mages on his side. So he can't have the ability to give people powers, because it makes him look like an idiot for not having an army of mages and taking over the world that way. But the same could apply to Mammoth Mogul, because apparently, according to Flynn, he gave magical power to people like Mina and Mighty, and apparently gave invincibility to the soldier ape guy, which is hardly noticeable since every character in Sonic is made of iron anyways. So why didn't he take over the world with an army of mages instead of just having the Destructics? I always figured he thought he was powerful enough alone that he didn't need an entire army and just needed 4, but still, he could have had an entire town's worth of people. Both Mogul and Ixis look like idiots with the ability to give people powers. Well, he's such an idiot. He's been an idiot the entire comic. It makes sense that he didn't think to give anyone but Jeffrey powers, because only Jeffrey wanted him in power in the first place. And I guess it also makes sense that he thinks that he doesn't need a whole army. He's so arrogant he thinks that he alone can take back the throne. If he can give Jeffrey elemental powers, why didn't he do that for his Crystal Army? Why didn't he do that for Kodos and Arachnus? I mean, he could still control them, he could still crystallize them. They were still under his control. I guess he figured he had to be the only wizard. Like, Kodos was his old enemy. Of course he would have... Kodos was his old enemy. Of course he wouldn't trust them with powers like Jeffrey is.